Hello guys, welcome back to the Raycom TV studio, where today we are absolutely thrilled to be joined by the guys from Shure yet again. So this video is going to be a follow-up to the walk test we did on the ADX5D receiver. If you haven't watched that video yet, go and watch it. It's brilliant. We were so impressed with the performance of this. We will link that down in the description for you as well. Today though, we're going to be taking a wider look at the Axient range, what it is, what it does, the various transmitters in that ecosystem. So I'm joined once again by Jack from Shure. Jack, great to have you in the studio with us.
Thank you very much.
Let's get started, have a little chat about these because they are some fantastic products we got here today.
Cool, well let's talk about Axient and where it came from first. And to understand the kind of story of Axient, we actually have to go back to 2012. So the precursor to this whole ecosystem was something called Axient Analog. And I mean, it was an analog RF system with a digital compander. So a little bit of DSP in there, which is not new in the industry at the time, but it did bring a lot of new things to kind of how RF works. So that's where we first started to work with ShowLink and having this concept of remote controlling our transmitters. And Axient Analog was very successful, used throughout the Olympic Games in 2012 in London. And it had lots of things. You know, we introduced frequency diversity transmitters, which was a completely new thing at the time. We introduced rechargeable batteries to the industry at that point. We were the first people to do it. And it was a fantastic system, worked really well. It became very clear that the follow-up to Axient was going to have to be a digital system. So we actually, not long after launching it, paused the development of Axient Analog. We were going to look at other transmitter options. We were going to look at taking it further. And we realized, no, this system has to be digital. And we essentially started a massively long process of customer feedback to, you know, understanding what Axient Analog did well, what it didn't do so well, what users would want from a form factor in terms of ins and outs of transmitters, things of that nature, ins and outs of receivers. And then in 2016, I believe, we launched the first Axient Digital platform, which is essentially what we, you know, have transmitter-wise here, and then a rack receiver as well. And when we launched it, it was very successful in live performance, very successful in arenas and stadiums and festivals and touring, which is exactly our home market. We then started to work with a lot of broadcasters, and they had specific interests in some of the transmitters that we'll look at later. But once we started working with those people, immediately people wanted to see a slot-in style camera receiver. So a very quick project was put forward to bring something to market based on what we had. And that is what we have here, the ADX5D. So to all intents and purposes, this is exactly the same as a rack receiver, just in a portable slot. And that means that it sounds the same, the performance is the same, the RF performance is exactly the same, the way it works, the architecture, the way the ShowLink works is the same. So it all forms part of that ecosystem, and importantly, it will talk to all of the transmitters that are available in the Axient Digital platform. And
that's that benefit, isn't it? Once you're in that ecosystem,
absolutely,
life's easy for you.
100%, yeah, you got it.
Let's talk about the ecosystem then, what we have available to us.
Cool.
So we've got a selection on the table in front of us, whether that's handhelds, you know, body pack transmitters. Run me through them, what we got. So
there's three kind of families, I guess, of transmitters. The first one that's worth talking about, I guess, is, you know, we do have a licensing deal with Quantum. So we have some Q5X transmitters for this, which I think is the first digital system that Quantum will talk to now, is the Axient Digital system. But what we're really here to talk about today is the Shure stuff, right? So there are two buy-in points for Axient Digital. You've got Axient AD, and then you've got ADX, which is the ShowLink enabled transmitters. And they kind of hit two different price points.
And that's that X that indicates the ShowLink.
That's exactly right.
Nice and simple. Cool.
So if all you want to do with your Axient Digital system is to send RF in one direction, you have no interest in remote controlling your transmitters, then you are looking at the AD1, which is the body pack here, or the AD2, which is the handheld on the bottom right-hand side there.
Sure.
And that's it. It just fires RF. It sounds exactly the same as all the expensive stuff as well. And we'll talk a little bit about how the gain ranging works in a moment when we do a deeper dive into the transmitters. But that's it. It just goes in one direction.
Cool.
Going up from that, if you want to have remote control, then we enter into, as you said, the X series of transmitters. So now we have an ADX1 body pack, which looks a little bit different. We have an ADX2 transmitter for the handheld, which actually broadly looks the same. And then we get into some special advanced technology Axient Digital transmitters, which do a number of really interesting things. So the first one that we can look at here is the ADX2FD, which is the top one on the right-hand side. And the FD stands for frequency diversity.
Okay.
So this transmitter has 2 RF boards in there, and what it's able to do is transmit the same audio over 2 completely different frequencies to your receiver, and it will work with this receiver or our rack receiver as well. Big advantage with that being, if you get interference on one of those channels, the other one is always running, so you will never ever have a dropout. And because this is a Show-Link enabled transmitter, what you can then do, if you've got it in a mesh system with backups programmed, the system will be able to change the channel of the frequency that's had interference and then deliver it a new frequency, and then you're back to running 2 discrete channels again.
Sure.
All built into that transmitter there.
All in that. It's amazing tech, isn't there, coming through?
Now you can actually have this running with body packs as well, but you just have to have 2 body packs. So
gotcha.
That's a way of working with that.
Cool.
So that is like the top of the line handheld. And then the thing that I think we're most excited about, and that particularly the broadcast industry is most excited about, is the ADX1M.
Yeah. So
this is an Axient Digital transmitter with Show-Link, so you can talk to this remotely if you want to do so. But obviously, it's a micro pack, which is where the M comes from. So this has an internal antenna, and we're also using a special plastic composite in this called Ultim. So this isn't just any old plastic that you get off the shelf. This is a very specific temperature transparent plastic. And the idea is this was initially thought of for the theatre industry, but if you've got anybody that needs to wear a body pack for a very long time, pressed up against the body, then this is absolutely the transmitter that you want to go for. So this has 4 antennas inside. So we've got our primary helical antenna that's sending the information to our receiver. We then have 2 Zigbee antennas, because in Zigbee you have to have a transmitting and a receiving antenna. So that's built into this. And then we have essentially a power sensing antenna. And what happens with any body pack, if you've got a whip antenna like this, in free space, it's doing absolutely everything perfectly well. But as soon as you put it up against a body, and a human body is essentially a big sack of water, this antenna starts to detune. And when it detunes, we lose a bit of RF power. And that can be if you're in a critical RF environment like a theatre, or perhaps in a sound stage where there's lots of weird stuff going on, lots of surfaces, lots of multipath happening. If you've got that kind of body detuning happening, that can be the bit that sinks the ship.
Yeah.
So having that auto-sensing antenna means that it's measuring the loss that's occurring, and then it's compensating for it. So it's changing, power slightly, changing frequency slightly to ensure that we're not dipping below that critical level. So bizarrely with this, the harder you make it work, the deeper you bury it in costume, the more difficult this situation is in, the better the body pack actually starts to function. It's quite bizarre. So when we did our walk test, this was in free space, which was perfect. But I think if we'd have buried that in, underneath Piers's t-shirt or something, you might have got a few extra dB out of it as well.
Sure.
So it's really clever.
There's some incredible features in it, isn't there?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Now, we alluded slightly, we touched on Zigbee.
Yep.
And the Zigbee mesh network with the ADX stuff works phenomenally. So actually what we're going to do, rather than bury that in this video, we want to do a dedicated video for that. So keep an eye out for that. That's coming very shortly. We're going to have a whole rack set up, a Zigbee mesh network, all on a computer, all with the software. We'll show you exactly how it works and how you can get yourself set up. So do keep an eye out for that video. That will be following this one up very shortly. I'm going to make Jack show me everything on that. He'll be sick of me soon, but thank you very much for watching, guys. That is a quick overview for you on the Shure Axiom range. Jack, thanks for coming in. We'll catch you in the next video. Take care.